Lagos, a city that pulsed with a million heartbeats, was silent only in the sacred space between Cynthia and Mary. The air in Lagos always hummed with a vibrant, restless energy, a symphony of honking yellow buses, the distant thrum of generators, the melodic calls of street hawkers, and the ceaseless chatter of millions of lives intertwining. But for Cynthia and Mary, their small, shared apartment in the bustling heart of Surulere was a bubble of profound quietude, a sanctuary where the city's clamor faded into a distant murmur. Their silence wasn't empty. It was a testament to a bond so deep, so intuitive, that words often felt redundant. A glance, a shared smile, a knowing sigh that was their language. Cynthia, with her skin the color of rich caramel and eyes that danced with an infectious optimism, was a whirlwind of ideas. She was an aspiring fashion designer, her mind a kaleidoscope of colors and patterns, her sketches overflowing with audacious cuts and vibrant Ankara prints. She moved through life with an almost childlike wonder, her heart open, her trust easily given. Mary, on the other hand, was the calm anchor to Cynthia's storm. Her beauty was subtle, a quiet elegance in her dark, watchful eyes and graceful movements. She was a budding interior decorator, her designs minimalist yet deeply soulful, reflecting her meticulous nature. Mary was the strategist, the planner, the one who saw the hidden currents beneath the surface. They had been inseparable since their days at Queen's College, sharing secrets, dreams, and the occasional plate of stolen jollof rice. Their friendship was a tapestry woven with threads of unwavering loyalty, shared laughter, and the quiet promise of a future built side by side. Their apartment, a cozy space filled with Cynthia's colorful fabric swatches and Mary's neatly arranged design books, was a testament to their intertwined aspirations. They spent evenings huddled over design sketches, Cynthia's excited chatter filling the room, while Mary offered thoughtful, precise critiques. They dreamed of a joint venture, a lifestyle brand perhaps, that combined fashion and interior aesthetics. A place where their individual talents could flourish together. Their bond, they believed, was impervious to anything the world could throw at them, especially not something as volatile and unpredictable as romantic love. Then Olisa walked into their lives. He wasn't just handsome, he was a force of nature. Tall, with the lean, athletic build of a footballer, and a smile that could disarm a hostile crowd, Olisa was a rising star in the Lagos music scene. His voice, a rich baritone, resonated with the soulful rhythms of Afrobeats, and his stage presence was electrifying. He was introduced to them at a mutual friend's house party, a vibrant affair pulsating with music and laughter. Cynthia, usually effervescent, found herself momentarily speechless, her eyes usually quick to dart around, fixated on him. He moved with an effortless grace, his laughter deep and genuine, his attention captivating. Mary, ever observant, noticed Cynthia's immediate enchantment. She watched as Olisa, drawn by Cynthia's bright energy, gravitated towards her, their conversation flowing easily amidst the thumping music. Mary felt a strange, unfamiliar prickle in her chest. Not jealousy, she told herself, but a protective instinct for her friend. As the night wore on, Olisa, with his easy charm, engaged both women in conversation. He spoke of his passion for music, his struggles, his dreams of making it big. He listened intently as Cynthia gushed about her fashion designs, and surprisingly turned to Mary, asking about the philosophy behind her minimalist aesthetic. Mary, usually reserved with strangers, found herself opening up, drawn in by his genuine curiosity. He had a way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. Over the next few weeks, Olisa became a regular fixture in their social circle. Group outings to the beach, late-night discussions over plates of suya, and impromptu jam sessions at his small studio became common. Both Cynthia and Mary found themselves drawn to his magnetic personality. He was kind, funny, and possessed a quiet intelligence that belied his boisterous stage persona. Cynthia, true to her open nature, was the first to admit her feelings. "Mary, I think I'm falling for him," she confessed one evening, her voice a breathless whisper as they sat on their balcony, the city lights twinkling below. He gets me. He sees the colors in my head." Mary listened, her expression unreadable in the dim light. "He's a good man, Ada, but be careful. Musicians can be complicated. Her voice was soft, almost a warning. Cynthia, however, was too lost in her infatuation to heed any caution. Elisa, for his part, seemed to reciprocate Cynthia's feelings. His gaze lingered on her, his compliments were more personal, and he sought her out in a crowd. He'd bring her small, thoughtful gifts, a rare fabric swatch he'd found, a new sketchbook, a CD of a Fela Kuti album she hadn't heard. Cynthia was radiant, her happiness spilling over into every aspect of her life, including her designs, which became even more daring and vibrant. Mary watched it all unfold. She saw the way Elisa's eyes lit up when Cynthia entered a room, the easy laughter they shared, the almost tangible connection between them. And deep within her, a seed began to sprout, a seed of something dark and insidious, something she refused to name. It was a bitter taste in her mouth, a tightening in her chest whenever she saw them together. She told herself it was concern for Cynthia, a fear that her impulsive friend would get hurt. But the truth, buried deep beneath layers of self-deception, was far more sinister. It was envy, a cold, sharp envy that gnawed at her, whispering that Cynthia always got what she wanted, always shone brighter. Mary began to observe them with a calculating eye. She noted Cynthia's small quirks, her occasional clumsiness, her tendency to be overly emotional when stressed. She also noted Elisa's reactions, his gentle amusement, his patient understanding. Mary, ever the strategist, began to see vulnerabilities, cracks in the perfect facade of their budding romance, and a dangerous thought began to form. What if she could be the one for Elisa? What if she could offer him something Cynthia couldn't? Quiet strength, perhaps, unwavering support, a more grounded presence. The whispers of ambition and desire began to drown out the sacred silence of their friendship. The seed of desire and the unseen weave. The initial weeks of Cynthia and Elisa's burgeoning romance were a whirlwind of joy for Cynthia. She floated through her days, her heart light, her creativity soaring. Every conversation with Elisa, every shared glance, every touch, felt like a confirmation of a destiny she hadn't dared to dream of. She confided everything to Mary, pouring out her heart in breathless whispers late into the night. "He said my designs are like music, Mary. He actually said that," Cynthia would gush, her eyes wide with wonder. "He understands me, truly understands me. It's like he sees into my soul." Mary would listen, her dark eyes thoughtful, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. "That's wonderful, Ada," she'd say, her voice calm and reassuring. "You deserve all the happiness." Her words were laced with a sweetness that seemed genuine, yet beneath it, a subtle shift was occurring. Mary's advice, once purely supportive, began to take on a new edge. "You know, Ada, Elisa is a very grounded person," Mary would remark casually, as Cynthia fretted over a late reply from him. "He appreciates stability. Maybe don't overwhelm him with too much emotion all at once. Men like consistency." Or, when Cynthia was particularly excited about a new fabric she'd found for a design inspired by Elisa, Mary would suggest, "It's beautiful, Ada, truly. But perhaps a bit much? Elisa seems to prefer a more understated elegance, don't you think?" Cynthia, trusting Mary implicitly, would nod, taking the advice to heart. She started to temper her exuberance, to second-guess her natural spontaneity, trying to mold herself into what she perceived Elisa might prefer, based on Mary's subtle hints. She didn't realize that Mary wasn't guiding her. She was subtly reshaping Elisa's perception of Cynthia, planting tiny seeds of doubt, making Cynthia seem less authentic, less herself. Mary's tactics were insidious, almost imperceptible. She began to insert herself into Cynthia and Elisa's interactions, always under the guise of being a supportive friend. If Elisa called, Mary would often be the one to answer, claiming Cynthia was busy, then engaging him in a lengthy, engaging conversation about his music or her interior design projects. She spoke with a quiet confidence that was both alluring and disarming, presenting herself as the calm, rational counterpart to Cynthia's perceived emotional intensity. "Oh, Elisa, Ada is just so passionate. Sometimes she gets carried away, you know," Mary would say with a soft laugh when he mentioned Cynthia's excited chatter. "She means well, of course, but she wears her heart on her sleeve." You have to be patient with her. She'd deliver these lines with a sympathetic sigh, making it seem like she was protecting Cynthia, when in reality, she was subtly painting Cynthia as high maintenance, perhaps even a little immature. Olisa, genuinely fond of both women, initially saw nothing amiss. He appreciated Mary's calm demeanor, her insightful comments on his music, and her practical advice on navigating the chaotic Lagos industry. He saw her as a steady, reliable presence, a good friend to Cynthia, and by extension, to him. But Mary's consistent, almost omnipresent availability, combined with her subtle narrative about Cynthia, began to have an effect. He started to unconsciously compare the two. Cynthia's vibrant energy, once so captivating, sometimes seemed a little overwhelming, especially after Mary's quiet, understanding presence. One afternoon, Elisa visited their apartment to drop off a new track he'd been working on, hoping for Cynthia's feedback. Cynthia was out at the market, looking for specific fabrics. Mary, home, welcomed him warmly. They sat in the living room discussing his music. Mary offered astute observations, pointing out nuances in the rhythm and lyrics that even Cynthia, with her artistic ear, might have missed. She spoke of her own struggles with creative blocks, finding common ground with him. The conversation flowed effortlessly, a comfortable intimacy settling between them. When Cynthia returned, laden with bags, she found them deep in conversation, their heads close, a shared smile on their faces. A flicker of unease, sharp and cold, pricked at her heart. She dismissed it immediately. Just friends, she told herself. Mary is just being Mary, supportive as always. But the incidents accumulated. Elisa would sometimes call Mary directly for advice on a new song or to discuss an industry contact. Mary would then relay the conversation to Cynthia, always framing it as, Elisa just needed a sounding board, because you were busy. Or, he asked for my opinion on this, but I told him you're the real expert. The subtle emphasis, the slight pause, the implication that she was merely a stand-in, slowly chipped away at Cynthia's confidence, making her feel less essential to Elisa. Cynthia, always open and trusting, never suspected Mary's true intentions. She saw Mary's constant presence as a sign of their unbreakable bond, a friend wanting to share in her happiness. She even confided her occasional insecurities about Elisa to Mary. Sometimes I feel like I'm too much, Mary, too loud, too emotional. Do you think he gets tired of me? Mary would pat her hand, her eyes full of feigned sympathy. Nonsense, Ada. You are who you are, but perhaps a little restraint never hurt anyone. Just to keep him on his toes, The advice, seemingly innocent, was a poison drip, slowly eroding Cynthia's self-assurance and subtly pushing her to behave in ways that were unnatural to her, making her seem less authentic to Elisa. The apartment, once a sanctuary of shared dreams, began to feel subtly different. The vibrant colors Cynthia loved seemed to clash with an unseen tension. The quietude, once comforting, now felt heavy, laden with unspoken secrets. Cynthia's designs, usually bold and free, became a little more hesitant, a little less daring, reflecting the growing unease in her heart. She felt a constant low hum of anxiety, a feeling she couldn't quite place, but one that seemed to intensify whenever Mary and Elisa were in the same room. The sacred silence of their friendship was slowly being replaced by the insidious whispers of a betrayal yet to be revealed. Weaving the web of deceit, Mary's subtle machinations escalated, becoming a carefully orchestrated dance of proximity and manipulation. Her goal was clear, though unspoken, to dismantle Cynthia's relationship with Elisa and claim him for herself. She moved with the quiet precision of a spider weaving its web, each thread meticulously placed. She began to engineer accidental encounters with Elisa. If she knew he was going to his studio, she'd conveniently be running an errand in that direction, bumping into him outside, initiating a casual conversation that inevitably stretched into an hour. She'd offer to help him carry equipment or share a quick meal at a nearby buka, always ensuring the interactions were brief enough not to arouse suspicion from Cynthia, but long enough to build a deeper rapport with Elisa. Mary's intelligence and calm demeanor were her greatest assets. While Cynthia was prone to passionate outbursts and emotional displays, Mary remained composed, offering Elisa a sense of stability he found increasingly appealing. She listened intently to his frustrations with the music industry, offering practical solutions rather than just sympathy. She remembered details about his life, his family, his aspirations, and brought them up in later conversations, making him feel truly seen and understood. Elisa was telling me about his new song, the one with the high-life fusion, Mary would casually mention to Cynthia later, her tone innocent. He's really struggling with the bridge. I told him he should try a different chord progression, something more unexpected. Cynthia would feel a pang of inadequacy. Why hadn't Elisa discussed his struggles with her first? Why had Mary's advice been so readily accepted? Mary always had an answer, a plausible reason. You were busy, Ada. I just happened to be there. One pivotal moment occurred during the planning of Elisa's upcoming album launch party. Cynthia, bursting with ideas, had envisioned a vibrant, colorful affair, reflecting Elisa's energetic music. She spent days sketching decor concepts, excitedly sharing them with Mary. Mary, however, subtly steered Elisa in a different direction. Ada's ideas are fantastic, Elisa, truly, Mary had said to him during a private conversation she'd engineered, catching him alone at a cafe. But for an album launch, don't you think something more sophisticated, more minimalist, would be more impactful? Something that speaks to your artistic depth, not just your energy? She showed him a few understated mood boards she prepared, featuring sleek lines, muted tones, and subtle lighting, a stark contrast to Cynthia's vibrant vision. Elisa, impressed by her professionalism and refined taste, agreed. When Elisa later told Cynthia he preferred a more minimalist aesthetic for the launch, Cynthia was crushed. "But I thought you loved my designs, Elisa. My colors!" she'd exclaimed, hurt and confused. Elisa, seeing her emotional reaction, felt a flicker of the very trait Mary had subtly highlighted. "Ada, it's not about your designs. They're beautiful. It's just, for this event, I want something different, something more mature." The word of mature stung Cynthia, implying her ideas were childish. Mary, of course, was there to console Cynthia. "Oh, Ada, don't be silly. He just wants to try something new. It doesn't mean he doesn't love your style. You know how men are." She'd offer a sympathetic hug, her eyes betraying nothing of her triumph. The emotional distance between Cynthia and Elisa grew, almost imperceptibly. Elisa still cared for Cynthia, but the initial spark of intense infatuation began to wane, replaced by a growing appreciation for Mary's steady presence. He found himself confiding in Mary more, seeking her advice, enjoying her calm companionship. He saw her as a confidant, a friend, perhaps even a potential partner who understood the complexities of his life without the emotional intensity that sometimes accompanied Cynthia's passion. Cynthia, meanwhile, felt a growing sense of unease, a cold knot in her stomach that refused to dissipate. She noticed Elisa's subtle shifts, his slightly less enthusiastic greetings, the way his eyes would occasionally drift to Mary when she spoke, the faint, almost imperceptible tension when all three were together. She tried to talk to Mary about it. "Mary, do you think Elisa's pulling away? He just seems different." Mary would feign surprise, her brow furrowed with concern. "Ada, no, why would you think that? You're probably just stressed with your designs. You know how you get." She'd then pivot, subtly shifting the blame back to Cynthia. "Maybe you're being a little too clingy. Men need space, you know." Cynthia, plagued by self-doubt, would retreat, chastising herself for her insecurities. She loved Mary, trusted her implicitly. How could she ever suspect her best friend of anything malicious? The idea was unthinkable. The apartment, once a haven, now felt like a cage. Cynthia's vibrant fabric seemed to mock her fading joy. The silence, once sacred, was now heavy with unspoken truths, a suffocating presence that pressed in on her. She poured her turmoil into her art, but her designs grew darker, the colors muted, reflecting the growing confusion and anxiety that clouded her spirit. She felt like a character in a play, watching her own tragedy unfold, powerless to stop it, blinded by the very loyalty she held so dear. The web was almost complete, woven with threads of deceit and the silent, insidious betrayal of a supposed friend. The shattered mirror. The truth, when it finally shattered Cynthia's world, arrived not with a dramatic flourish, but with the mundane click of a forgotten phone. It was a scorching Saturday afternoon, the kind of Ligas heat that clung to your skin like a second layer. Cynthia had spent the morning at a fabric market, haggling for a rare indigo print, and returned to the apartment exhausted but exhilarated. Mary was out, supposedly at a client meeting. Elisa had called earlier, asking Cynthia to meet him at a new art exhibition opening in Victoria Island that evening. Cynthia, despite her lingering unease, felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps things were finally turning around. As she tidied up the living room, she noticed Mary's phone lying on the sofa, half hidden beneath a throw pillow. Mary was meticulous about her phone, never leaving it unattended. A strange intuition, cold and sharp, pricked at Cynthia. She knew it was wrong, a violation of trust, but something compelled her. She picked it up. The screen was unlocked. Her thumb, almost of its own accord, navigated to the messaging app. Her breath hitched. There at the top of the chat list was a conversation with Elisa. The recent messages were casual, innocuous, but as she scrolled up, a chilling narrative unfolded. Mary to Elisa, 2 weeks ago. Ada is so stressed about this fashion show, she's barely sleeping. Sometimes I worry she takes on too much. She needs someone calm to balance her out. Elisa to Mary, 1 week ago. You're right, she's a firecracker, but sometimes the intensity can be a lot. You always bring a sense of peace, Mary. I appreciate that. Cynthia's fingers trembled. She scrolled further, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Mary to Elisa, 3 days ago. Ada was so upset about the album launch decor. She really wanted her colorful vision. I tried to explain your preference for sophistication, but she's quite sensitive, you know. It's hard to tell her things without her taking it personally. Elisa to Mary, 3 days ago. I noticed. Thanks for handling it, Mary. You always know how to smooth things over. I wish he could be more like you sometimes. The words were a physical blow, each one a hammer strike to her chest. Cynthia felt a wave of nausea. This wasn't just Mary offering advice. This was a calculated, insidious campaign of character assassination. She had been systematically undermined, painted as volatile, sensitive, and immature. Then she saw it. A message from Mary, sent just yesterday. Oh, Mary to Elisa. Ada has her fabric market trip tomorrow morning, so she'll be out. Why don't you come over around noon? We can discuss the new music video concept. I have some ideas for minimalist sets that would truly elevate your artistry. Elisa to Mary. Perfect. Noon it is. Looking forward to it. Your insights are always invaluable. Cynthia looked at the timestamp. Yesterday, noon. Mary had been home. Elisa had been here, while Cynthia was out, believing Mary was at a client meeting. The pieces clicked into place with a sickening clarity. The accidental meetings, the subtle undermining, the convenient unavailability when Elisa called. It was all a lie. A carefully constructed facade of friendship designed to steal her love. Her mind reeled. She remembered the cold spots in the apartment, the suffocating silence. It wasn't just the city's quietude. It was the chilling silence of Mary's deception. A silence that had swallowed her joy, her trust, her very relationship. She heard the faint click of the front door. Mary was back. Cynthia's hand instinctively tightened around the phone. She took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to compose herself, but the betrayal burned like acid in her throat. Mary walked into the living room, a cheerful smile on her face. Ada, you're back. How was the market? Did you find your elusive indigo? Cynthia slowly raised the phone, her eyes, usually so full of warmth, now blazing with a cold, terrifying fury. Is this how you find your clients, Mary? By arranging secret meetings with my boyfriend behind my back? Her voice was low, trembling with suppressed rage. Mary's smile faltered, replaced by a mask of confusion. Ada, what are you talking about? What's wrong? Don't you dare play innocent. Cynthia's voice rose, cracking with pain. I saw the messages, Mary. All of them. The lies, the manipulations, the way you poisoned his mind against me. You used our friendship as a weapon. She thrust the phone towards Mary, the screen still displaying the damning conversation. Mary's face drained of color. Her eyes darted to the phone, then back to Cynthia's accusing gaze. The composure she always wore like a second skin finally shattered. Ada, I can explain. It's not what you think. Oh, I think I know exactly what it is, Cynthia retorted, her voice now a raw scream. You wanted him. You envied what we had. You systematically destroyed my happiness, my trust, everything. Tears, hot and bitter, finally streamed down her face. You, Mary, my best friend, my sister. Just then the doorbell rang. Olisa. He was early for their art exhibition date. Mary flinched, her eyes wide with panic. Cynthia, fueled by a fresh surge of pain and anger, walked to the door and flung it open. Olisa stood there, a bright smile on his face, holding a small bouquet of flowers. His smile vanished as he saw Cynthia's tear-streaked face and Mary's pale, terrified expression behind her. Ada! Mary! What's going on? Cynthia turned to him, her voice trembling with the force of her broken heart. Ask her, Olisa. Ask your invaluable confidant. Ask her why she's been secretly meeting you, poisoning your mind against me, and destroying everything we had. She gestured wildly towards Mary, then back to the phone still clutched in her hand. Olisa looked from Cynthia to Mary, his handsome face contorting in confusion, then dawning comprehension. He saw the phone, the raw pain in Cynthia's eyes, the guilt etched on Mary's face. Mary, is this true? His voice was low, laced with disbelief and hurt. Mary, cornered, finally broke. Her shoulders slumped, and she avoided his gaze. Olisa, I thought I could offer you more. She's so emotional. I thought you needed someone more stable, more serious. Her voice was barely a whisper, a pathetic confession of her jealousy and ambition. Olisa stared at her, a look of profound disappointment and disgust washing over his face. You did this? To Cynthia? To us? He looked at Cynthia, his eyes filled with regret. Ada, I swear, I didn't know. I appreciated her advice. I never thought. He trailed off, his words hollow. Cynthia felt no satisfaction, only a crushing emptiness. The love, the friendship, the very foundation of her world had imploded. She looked at Mary, her eyes devoid of tears now, simply reflecting the profound void that had opened within her. Get out, Mary, she said, her voice chillingly calm. Get out of my apartment. Get out of my life. Mary, defeated, picked up a small bag she had packed earlier for a supposed weekend trip. She walked past them, her head bowed, not meeting either of their gazes. The front door clicked shut behind her, leaving a silence far more deafening than any noise. Olisa reached for Cynthia's hand, but she flinched away. Don't touch me, she whispered, her voice raw. Just leave, Olisa. Please. I can't look at you right now. He hesitated, then nodded slowly, his face etched with guilt and sorrow. He placed the bouquet of flowers gently on the coffee table, a poignant splash of color against the wreckage of their relationship. He turned and walked out, leaving Cynthia alone in the shattered remnants of her friendship and her love. The vibrant pulse of Ligus seemed to mock her, its joyous rhythm now a painful reminder of the silence that had once been sacred, now broken beyond repair. Echoes in the silence. The days that followed were a blur of desolate emptiness for Cynthia. The apartment, once a haven of shared laughter and whispered dreams, now felt vast and cold, haunted by the ghost of a friendship that had been brutally murdered. Mary's absence was a gaping wound, a constant ache that throbbed with every memory. Cynthia moved through her routines like a phantom, her body present, but her spirit adrift in a sea of pain. She stopped sketching. Her vibrant Ankara fabrics lay untouched, their bold patterns mocking her muted existence. Food lost its taste, sleep became an elusive luxury, haunted by replays of Mary's insidious words and Elisa's confused, guilty face. She confined herself to the apartment, the outside world too loud, too bright, too filled with the echoes of a life she no longer recognized. Her phone, once a constant companion, lay ignored. Elisa tried to contact her, a barrage of texts and calls filled with apologies, explanations, and pleas for understanding. Cynthia ignored them all. The thought of his voice, his touch, was an unbearable agony. He had been complicit, however unknowingly, in Mary's betrayal. He had chosen, even if subtly, to listen to the whispers of deceit, and in doing so, he had obliterated her world. Kemi, their mutual friend, was caught in the crossfire. She called Cynthia, her voice laced with concern. "Ada, what happened? Mary just packed her bags and left, saying she needed space. And Elisa looks like he's seen a ghost." Cynthia, her voice hoarse from crying, recounted the story, the words tumbling out in a torrent of pain and disbelief. Kemi listened in stunned silence. "Mary? No! It can't be! Not Mary!" But as Cynthia detailed the insidious manipulations, the calculated lies, Kemi's disbelief turned to horrified understanding. "Oh, Ada, I am so sorry. I had no idea." Kemi became Cynthia's lifeline. She visited daily, bringing food, sitting in quiet solidarity, offering a comforting presence that allowed Cynthia to slowly, painfully, begin to process the trauma. There were no easy answers, no quick fixes, just the slow, agonizing process of grief. One afternoon, Kemi found Cynthia staring blankly at a blank canvas, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. "Ada," Kemi said gently, "your heart is broken, yes, but your hands still remember how to create beauty. Don't let this extinguish your light." Her words were a faint spark in the suffocating darkness. Cynthia looked at Kemi, then at the blank canvas. It was a vast, terrifying emptiness. But for the first time in weeks, a tiny flicker of defiance ignited within her. She was broken, yes, but she was not destroyed. The embers of her spirit still glowed, waiting for the oxygen to reignite into a flame. The journey back to herself would be long, arduous, and painful, but the first fragile step had been taken. She would not let their betrayal be the end of her story. Slowly, painstakingly, Cynthia began to mend. She started with small, mundane tasks, cleaning the apartment, rearranging her fabrics, watering her plants. Each act was a defiance against the paralysis of despair. She found solace in the rhythm of daily life, in the simple act of putting one foot in front of the other. Her art became her therapy, a silent confession of her suffering, a raw outpouring of her soul. She didn't aim to create masterpieces. She simply painted what she felt. The suffocating darkness, the sharp edges of pain, the swirling chaos of emotions. Her initial strokes were violent, angry slashes of crimson and black. Then, as the days blurred into weeks, they softened, evolving into hues of gray and bruised purples, reflecting her sorrow. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, faint lines of gold and silver began to emerge, glimmering through the darkness like nascent rays of hope. Her designs, too, began to shift. They became less about external validation and more about internal strength, incorporating elements of resilience and quiet defiance. She cut off all contact with Mary. The thought of reconciliation was a distant, impossible dream. The wound was too deep, the betrayal too profound. She also kept Elisa at a distance, needing space to heal, to untangle her emotions from the wreckage of the shared past. The silence that followed was initially terrifying, then liberating. She was no longer waiting for a call, dreading a message, or fearing an encounter. She was free to focus solely on herself. Months passed. Cynthia slowly began to mend. The sharp edges of her pain dulled into a melancholic ache, a reminder of what she had lost, but no longer a debilitating force. She learned to cook new dishes, to explore new parts of Lagos, finding comfort in the city's vibrant energy, which she now embraced on her own terms. Her art evolved. The anger and sorrow began to give way to a quiet strength, a deeper understanding of herself. Her new paintings, though still infused with a certain melancholy, possessed a profound beauty, a raw honesty that resonated with anyone who saw them. She started exhibiting her new work in small, independent galleries across Lagos. Her unique style, infused with both vulnerability and strength, began to gain recognition. Critics spoke of her profound emotional depth, her ability to translate inner turmoil into breathtaking visual narratives. Cynthia, for the first time, felt truly seen, not as Elisa's girlfriend or Mary's best friend, but as an artist in her own right. She found new connections, new friendships, built on a foundation of genuine respect and shared passions. One evening, standing before a newly completed piece, a stark, powerful depiction of an Iroko tree, its ancient branches scarred by lightning, yet still standing tall, its roots deep in the earth, Cynthia felt a surge of something she hadn't felt in a long time: pride. It was a quiet, steady flame, born from the ashes of her broken heart. She had survived. She had transformed her pain into something beautiful. She had found herself again. Not the naive girl who had fallen in love, but a woman forged in the fires of betrayal. Stronger, wiser, and deeply, truly herself. 2 years later, Cynthia's name was whispered with reverence in Lagos art circles. Her solo exhibition, titled Resilience in Bloom, was a resounding success, drawing crowds and critical acclaim. Her designs, too, had found their niche, celebrated for their unique blend of traditional Nigerian aesthetics and contemporary flair. She had moved to a new, larger apartment in Ikoyi, a space filled with light and her own vibrant energy, a true reflection of her renewed spirit. The thought of seeing Mary or Elisa no longer sent shivers down her spine. The pain had receded, replaced by a quiet understanding and a profound sense of self-preservation. She had built a new life, a new circle of friends, and a new sense of purpose. On the opening night of her exhibition, as she mingled with guests, a familiar voice, slightly altered by time, drifted through the murmuring crowd. "Adès?" She turned. Standing before her was Elisa. He looked older, lines of weariness etched around his eyes. He was alone. His music career had seen some success, but the meteoric rise he had once envisioned hadn't quite materialized. There were whispers of management issues, of creative blocks. A flicker of the old pain, quickly extinguished by her newfound strength, passed through her. "Oh, Lisa," she acknowledged, her voice calm, devoid of the emotion that once defined their interactions. He shifted uncomfortably, his gaze sweeping over her powerful art. "Your work, it's breathtaking, Adès, truly remarkable. I wanted to apologize again, for everything, for my blindness, for my part in what happened." His eyes held a genuine admiration, mixed with deep regret. Cynthia looked at him, truly looked at him, without anger or sorrow, but with a detached clarity. "I accepted your apology a long time ago, Elisa. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about freeing yourself." She paused, a gentle sadness in her voice. "Are you happy?" He sighed, a heavy sound. "Happy is a strong word. Mary, she's very driven. Her interior design business is doing incredibly well. She's exactly what she always wanted to be: successful, respected." He hesitated and added, almost as an afterthought, "But sometimes ambition consumes everything else. She's always working, always pushing. There's not much warmth." He did not explicitly state their relationship status, but his tone implied a certain distance, a lack of the deep connection he once sought. He seemed to carry a quiet burden, a sense of unfulfilled emotional need. Cynthia nodded, a faint, sad smile touching her lips. She understood. Ambition, unchecked by empathy, could indeed be a lonely path. She felt no schadenfreude, only a quiet understanding of the complex tapestry of human desires and their consequences. She knew Mary had achieved her material goals, but at what cost to her soul? She never saw Mary. There were rumors, of course. Mary's design empire was indeed flourishing, whispers of her projects in Abuja and even abroad reaching Lagos. But Cynthia had moved on. Their paths had diverged, perhaps forever. The chasm of betrayal was too wide, too deep to ever truly bridge. One sunny afternoon, Cynthia found herself at the Lekki Arts Crafts Market, browsing for inspiration, the vibrant chaos a comforting backdrop. She saw a young woman sketching, her brow furrowed in concentration. Cynthia remembered herself, years ago, in Surulere, full of naive dreams. She thought of the young woman who had once dreamed of finding love and having her art celebrated. She had found love, lost it, and rediscovered a deeper, more profound love for herself and her craft. Her art was celebrated, not just for its beauty, but for the story it told, a story of resilience, of transforming pain into power. She had learned that true strength lay not in avoiding heartbreak, but in surviving it, in rebuilding oneself, piece by beautiful piece. The scars of betrayal would always be a part of her, a faint outline on her soul, but they no longer defined her. They were simply a testament to the journey, a reminder that even in the deepest darkness, light could always be found, especially within oneself. She was free, and that, in itself, was a masterpiece. Her life, once a silent space of shared intimacy, was now a vibrant symphony of her own making.